My name is Margaret Foster, and 3 weeks ago, my son's fiancée, Ashley, called me to say I was not welcome at their wedding because I was too controlling and old-fashioned for their modern celebration. What Ashley did not know was that I had been secretly paying for their entire $68,000 wedding for the past 8 months. And I had been expecting this conversation for a very long time. But what happened next would teach them both a lesson about family respect they would never forget. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about the most satisfying wedding revenge story you have ever heard, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family relationships, ungrateful children, and what happens when people bite the hand that feeds them. For the past 2 years, I had been watching my 26-year-old son, Michael, drift away from our family values and toward a woman who seemed determined to erase every trace of his upbringing and replace it with her own shallow priorities. Ashley Brooks was 24 years old, worked as a social media manager for a boutique marketing company, and had convinced Michael that his traditional Catholic family was holding him back from becoming the successful, sophisticated man she believed he could be. But what Ashley did not know was that I came from real money, generational wealth that had been carefully protected and invested by the Foster family for over 70 years. My great-grandfather had started Foster construction in 1945 after returning from World War II, building it into one of Oregon's most successful family businesses. When my grandfather took over in the 1970s, he expanded into commercial real estate development. My father had continued that growth, and when he passed away 10 years ago, I inherited a business empire worth approximately $4.7 million. Then, Foster family wealth was not just sentimentality or tradition. We owned 12 commercial properties throughout Portland, had partnerships in 3 major construction projects, and maintained investment portfolios that generated substantial passive income. I could have lived lavishly without working another day in my life, but I had chosen to maintain a modest lifestyle while continuing to grow our family assets for future generations. What made my financial position even stronger was that very few people knew the true extent of the Foster family wealth. We had always lived quietly, driving reliable cars instead of luxury vehicles, living in comfortable but not ostentatious homes, and avoiding the kind of flashy spending that attracted attention from fortune hunters and gold diggers. My late husband, David, had understood this approach and had helped me maintain our family's privacy about financial matters. Michael knew that our family was financially secure, but he had no idea about the actual scope of our wealth or my ability to control significant resources when family relationships and respect were at stake. I had deliberately kept detailed financial information private because I wanted my children to develop their own work ethic and values without becoming dependent on family money or entitled to wealth they had not earned. Ashley came from what she described as a progressive family that valued independence, creativity, and breaking free from outdated social expectations. What she actually came from was a broken home where her parents had divorced twice each, her siblings were estranged from each other, and nobody took responsibility for anyone else's well-being or happiness. Ashley had learned to navigate family relationships through manipulation and control, rather than love and mutual respect. Ashley's family background was marked by financial instability, broken promises, and people who consistently chose their own immediate interests over family loyalty or long-term relationships. Her father had abandoned the family when Ashley was 12, leaving her mother to raise 3 children on a part-time teacher's salary. Her mother had remarried twice, each time 2 men who brought more problems than solutions to their already chaotic household. Ashley's older brother had been in and out of jail for drug-related offenses, and her younger sister had become pregnant at 16 and dropped out of high school to move in with an older boyfriend who had no job and no apparent interest in supporting a family. Ashley had learned early that she could only rely on herself, and that family relationships were obstacles to overcome rather than sources of support and stability. This background explained Ashley's hostility toward traditional family values and her determination to separate Michael from the close relationships he had always maintained with me and his siblings. Ashley viewed family loyalty as weakness and saw my influence on Michael's life as competition for her control over his decisions and priorities. But Ashley had seriously underestimated both my commitment to protecting my family relationships and my ability to defend those relationships when they were threatened by people who did not understand or respect the foster family's values and traditions. My story begins 3 years ago when my life looked very different from where it ended up. I was 54 years old, widowed for 6 years after my husband David died in a construction accident at one of our job sites, and focused on maintaining close relationships with my three adult children while continuing to manage the family business interests that David and I had built together. David's death had been devastating emotionally, but it had also forced me to take on business responsibilities that I had previously shared with him or delegated to our management team. I discovered that I had a natural talent for real estate investment and construction project management, skills that allowed me to grow our family wealth significantly during the years after David's death. Managing the foster family business empire required constant attention to construction schedules, tenant relationships, property maintenance, and investment opportunities that could enhance our long-term financial security. I worked closely with our attorney, our accountant, and our property management company to ensure that every aspect of our business operations was handled professionally and profitably. But my most important responsibility was preparing my children to eventually take over management of the family business and to handle inherited wealth responsibly. David and I had always planned that our children would learn about our financial situation gradually, gaining experience and demonstrating sound judgment before being given significant responsibilities or access to family money. My oldest son, David Jr., was 31 years old, married to his college sweetheart, Jennifer, and living in Sacramento, where he worked as a civil engineer for the California Department of Transportation. David Jr. had always been financially responsible and had shown genuine interest in learning about real estate, investment, and business management. He and Jennifer visited Portland regularly and maintained close family relationships that I treasured. My daughter Sarah was 29 years old, married to Dr. Robert Chen, and living in Seattle, where she worked as a pediatric nurse while raising their two young children. Sarah had inherited my practical nature and David's attention to detail, making her an excellent candidate for eventually taking on family business responsibilities. She and Robert were saving money to buy their own home and had never asked for financial assistance beyond modest gifts for birthdays and holidays. Michael was my youngest child at 26 years old, and until he met Ashley, he had been the most family-oriented of my children. Michael worked as an accountant at Morrison Financial Services, making decent money but nothing spectacular. He had always been content with a simple lifestyle and had shown genuine appreciation for family traditions and values that David and I had tried to instill in all of our children. Michael had graduated from Portland State University with a degree in accounting and had immediately found steady employment with a firm that provided good benefits and opportunities for professional growth. He was well liked by his colleagues, respected by his supervisors, and seemed to be building a solid foundation for a successful career and eventual family life. Michael lived in a modest apartment in Southeast Portland, drove a reliable Honda Civic that he had purchased used, and spent most of his free time with family members or close friends from college. He volunteered at our church, participated in family gatherings, and had always been someone I could count on for help with business matters or personal support when I needed it. Michael had dated several women since college, but none of his relationships had been serious enough to warrant family introductions or long-term planning. He seemed to be waiting for someone special, someone who would appreciate his values and be interested in building the kind of strong marriage and family life that David and I had modeled throughout his childhood. I was pleased when Michael started dating Ashley too. years ago because she seemed different from his previous girlfriends. Ashley was more sophisticated and ambitious, with strong opinions about career planning, social issues, and lifestyle choices. She appeared to challenge Michael intellectually and encouraged him to think more seriously about his future goals and professional development. Ashley was 24 years old when she met Michael at a friend's birthday party in downtown Portland. She had recently been hired as a social media manager for Cascade Marketing, a boutique firm that specialized in promoting local restaurants, retail stores, and service businesses through Instagram, Facebook, and other online platforms. Ashley's job required creativity, technical skills, and the ability to understand current trends in social media and digital marketing. She was good at her work and had helped several local businesses increase their online visibility and customer engagement. Ashley took pride in her professional accomplishments and often talked about her plans for eventually starting her own marketing agency or consulting business. At first, I was impressed by Ashley's intelligence and ambition. She seemed to genuinely care about Michael's happiness and success, and she encouraged him to consider opportunities for professional advancement that he might not have pursued on his own. Ashley suggested that Michael study for his CPA certification, apply for more senior positions at other accounting firms, and think about eventually starting his own practice. Ashley also introduced Michael to cultural activities and social experiences that broadened his horizons and exposed him to ideas and perspectives he had not previously considered. They attended art gallery openings, music festivals, and political events that gave Michael new insights into contemporary issues and creative expression. But gradually, I began to notice changes in Michael's behavior and attitudes that concerned me deeply. Michael started making comments about how traditional family gatherings were boring and outdated, how religious traditions were restrictive and meaningless in modern life, and how successful people needed to focus on their own goals rather than maintaining obligations to extended family members who might not understand contemporary opportunities and challenges. These ideas were so completely opposite to everything Michael had believed and practiced throughout his life that I knew they were coming from Ashley's influence rather than his own personal growth or maturation. Ashley was systematically undermining Michael's connection to our family values and replacing them with her own priorities and worldview that emphasized individual achievement over family loyalty and community responsibility. Ashley also began making subtle but persistent criticisms of our family traditions, my parenting decisions, and even my late husband's memory and legacy. She would make comments about how sad it was that some families were so focused on the past that they could not embrace modern opportunities for growth and change. She suggested that Michael's loyalty to family traditions was holding him back from reaching his full potential as an independent, sophisticated adult. More troubling was Ashley's obvious discomfort with our family's financial security and the stability that had characterized Michael's upbringing. She seemed to resent the fact that Michael's family had resources that her family lacked, and she was constantly making comments about how money should not influence family relationships or personal decisions. Ashley claimed to value authenticity and independence over financial advantages, but her behavior suggested that she was actually quite focused on money and social status. She was always researching expensive restaurants, luxury vacation destinations, and high-end consumer products that she claimed represented quality and sophistication that people with refined taste should appreciate and pursue. Ashley's spending habits were clearly beyond what her social media manager salary could support, but she seemed to expect that Michael would help finance her lifestyle preferences through shared expenses, expensive gifts, and participation in costly activities that she claimed were necessary for maintaining their social relationships and professional networking opportunities. Michael had always been careful with money and had built modest savings through consistent budgeting and avoiding unnecessary expenses. But after he started dating Ashley, I noticed that his savings accounts were not growing and that he was occasionally stressed about covering his monthly expenses. Despite having steady income from his accounting job, when I asked Michael about his financial situation, he explained that he and Ashley were investing in their relationship by experiencing restaurants, concerts, and travel opportunities that would create lasting memories and strengthen their emotional connection. Michael claimed that these shared experiences were more valuable than accumulating money in savings accounts that earned minimal interest. But I could see that Ashley's influence was creating financial pressure that made Michael anxious and defensive about his spending decisions. Ashley had convinced Michael that frugal habits were signs of a limited mindset that prevented people from enjoying life and pursuing opportunities that required investment in quality, experiences, and professional development. The first major conflict came when Michael announced their engagement 18 months ago. Ashley had very specific ideas about how their engagement and wedding should be handled, and most of her preferences involved excluding or minimizing family input in favor of choices that reflected their modern, independent approach to marriage and life planning. Ashley wanted a non-religious ceremony. Even though Michael had been raised Catholic and had always expressed interest in having a traditional church wedding that would honor our family's faith and provide spiritual foundation for their marriage, she wanted a small guest list that included mostly her friends and coworkers, excluding many of Michael's extended family members who had been important parts of his life since childhood. Ashley also wanted a destination wedding that would be expensive and difficult for older family members to attend, claiming that exotic locations created more memorable experiences than traditional venues that she considered boring and unoriginal. She had researched wedding destinations in Costa Rica, Mexico, and even Europe that would require significant travel expenses for all guests. When I gently suggested that Michael might want to consider some compromises that would honor both of their preferences while maintaining important family connections, Ashley became defensive and accused me of trying to control their wedding planning process. She told Michael that his mother was interfering in decisions that should be made by the couple alone, and that he needed to set boundaries with family members who could not respect his independence and adult autonomy. Ashley's reaction to my suggestions revealed her true attitude toward family relationships and her determination to isolate Michael from influences that might challenge her control over his decisions and priorities. She viewed any input from family members as threats to her authority rather than expressions of love and concern from people who cared about Michael's happiness and future success. Michael seemed torn between wanting to maintain his relationship with me and wanting to support Ashley's preferences for their wedding celebration. He started avoiding conversations about wedding planning and seemed uncomfortable whenever I asked about their timeline or offered suggestions about venues, catering, or other practical considerations that required coordination and advanced planning. But what Michael and Ashley did not realize was that their wedding plans were creating significant financial pressure that neither of them could handle independently. Ashley's vision for their celebration involved expenses that far exceeded what they could afford on their combined salaries, especially considering that Michael was also trying to save money for a house down payment, and Ashley had student loan debts that consumed a significant portion of her income. Ashley had researched wedding costs and had discovered that the kind of sophisticated celebration she wanted would require approximately $68,000 for venue rental, catering, photography, flowers, music, decorations, and all other services. Michael's accounting background allowed him to understand exactly how impossible it would be for them to afford such expenses without taking on debt that could affect their financial security for years. When Michael tried to discuss budget constraints and suggest less expensive alternatives, Ashley became angry and accused him of not prioritizing their relationship or understanding the importance of starting their marriage with a celebration that reflected their taste and social status. Ashley claimed that successful couples found ways to afford the weddings they deserved, regardless of temporary financial challenges. Ashley also compared Michael unfavorably to other men she knew who had provided expensive weddings for their fiancés, suggesting that Michael's reluctance to spend money on their celebration indicated that he did not really love her or share her vision for their future together. These manipulative tactics were obviously causing Michael's significant emotional distress and financial anxiety as their financial stress became more obvious and their relationship became more tense. I made a decision that would ultimately give me the leverage I needed to teach both of them important lessons about family respect, gratitude, and the consequences of taking generosity for granted while disrespecting the people who provide that generosity. I secretly began paying for their wedding expenses, routing the money through Maria Santos, the party planning company that Ashley had hired to coordinate their celebration. My arrangement with Maria was simple and discreet. I would cover all wedding expenses directly, but Ashley and Michael would believe that they were making payments. According to their original budget agreement, Maria would send Ashley invoices for reduced amounts that reflected what they could afford to pay, while I covered the difference between their payments and the actual costs of the premium vendors and services that Ashley had chosen for their celebration. This arrangement allowed Ashley to plan the expensive, sophisticated wedding she wanted while protecting Michael from financial stress that could have damaged his credit rating or forced him to take on debt that would affect their future security. I chose to handle their wedding costs secretly rather than offering direct financial assistance because I suspected that Ashley would refuse help from me or would use my generosity as evidence that I was trying to control their wedding planning decisions. Ashley had made it clear that she valued independence and wanted to pay for their own celebration without family assistance that might come with expectations or obligations. But my secret arrangement also gave me insurance against being excluded or disrespected. During the wedding planning process, if Ashley continued to undermine my relationship with Michael or tried to minimize my role in their celebration, I would have the option to withdraw my financial support and let them deal with the consequences of their expensive choices and unrealistic expectations. This financial leverage was particularly important because I could see that Ashley's influence on Michael was becoming more problematic as their wedding date approached. Ashley was encouraging Michael to distance himself from family traditions and relationships that had always been central to his identity and sense of belonging. Over the following months, I watched Ashley plan an increasingly elaborate celebration while Michael became more stressed about money and more distant from our family relationships. Ashley hired expensive vendors, chose premium menu options, and added costly decorative elements that transformed their budget wedding into a luxury event that rivaled celebrations hosted by much wealthier families. Ashley selected Riverside Gardens as their venue, one of Portland's most exclusive wedding locations with gardens, a historic mansion, and riverside views that provided elegant backdrops for photography and outdoor ceremonies. The venue rental alone cost $12,000, more than half of what Ashley and Michael believed their entire wedding budget should be. For catering, Ashley chose Bella Vista, a high-end restaurant that specialized in Italian cuisine and required a minimum of $150 per guest for their wedding menu. Ashley selected premium options, including appetizer stations, multiple course dinners, premium wines, and elaborate dessert presentations that increased their per-guest cost to over $200. Ashley also hired Thompson Photography, one of Portland's most sought-after wedding photographers, whose packages started at $8,000 and included engagement sessions, full-day wedding coverage, and professionally edited photo albums. She chose their premium package that included drone photography, second photographer coverage, and rush processing for social media sharing. For flowers and decorations, Ashley worked with Garden Dreams, a luxury floral design company that specialized in elaborate centerpieces, ceremony arches, and decorative installations that transformed venues into fairy tale settings. Ashley's floral budget exceeded $15,000, including bridal bouquets, bridesmaids, bouquets, boutonnieres, ceremony decorations, and reception centerpieces. Michael was clearly worried about their growing wedding expenses. But Ashley convinced him that their celebration was an investment in their future happiness and social status. That justified the temporary financial strain. She reminded Michael that successful couples prioritized their own relationship over extended family expectations, and that their wedding should reflect their personal values rather than traditional obligations or budget constraints. But Ashley's planning process revealed her true priorities and character in ways that confirmed my growing concerns about her influence on Michael's life and future. Ashley consistently chose the most expensive options available, dismissed Michael's concerns about costs, and showed no consideration for the financial impact their wedding would have on their future security and independence. Ashley also became increasingly critical of our family traditions and values. During the wedding planning process, she made disparaging comments about religious ceremonies, traditional wedding customs, and family expectations that she considered outdated and restrictive. Ashley seemed determined to create a celebration that deliberately rejected everything our family represented and valued. Most troubling was Ashley's treatment of Michael during this stressful period. Instead of supporting him when he expressed anxiety about their wedding costs, Ashley became angry and accusatory, claiming that his concerns about money proved that he did not really love her or share her vision for their future together. Ashley told Michael that men who truly cared about their fiancés would find ways to provide the wedding their partners deserved, regardless of financial challenges or family pressure. She suggested that Michael's hesitation about spending money on their celebration indicated that he was not ready for the kind of mature, committed relationship she expected from marriage. These manipulative tactics were obviously causing Michael significant emotional distress, but he seemed unable to recognize Ashley's behavior as psychological manipulation rather than legitimate relationship concerns. Michael was working overtime, taking on side projects with other accounting firms, and even considering personal loans to cover wedding expenses that he believed were necessary for Ashley's happiness. But what Michael did not know was that I was monitoring their financial situation carefully and was prepared to intervene if Ashley's demands created debt or credit problems that could affect Michael's future security. I had access to Michael's credit reports through our family business accounts, and I was watching for signs that he might be taking on unsustainable financial obligations. I was also watching Ashley's behavior toward other family members and friends to understand how she treated people when she believed she had power over them or when they could not provide immediate benefits for her goals and ambitions. Ashley's interactions with vendors, service providers, and even Michael's friends revealed patterns of manipulation and disrespect that confirmed my concerns about her character. Ashley was consistently demanding and difficult with wedding vendors, frequently changing her mind about expensive details and showing no consideration for the extra work and coordination required to accommodate her preferences. She treated photographers, florists, and caterers as servants rather than professionals, apparently believing that paying for services gave her the right to be rude and dismissive to working people. Ashley also began excluding Michael's friends from their social activities and wedding planning discussions, claiming that his college friends were immature and would not fit in with the sophisticated celebration she was planning. She encouraged Michael to make new friends through her professional network and social connections, people who shared her values and lifestyle aspirations. These isolation tactics were classic manipulation strategies designed to weaken Michael's support system and make him more dependent on Ashley for social connection and emotional validation. Ashley was systematically removing people from Michael's life who might question her influence or provide alternative perspectives on their relationship dynamics. The breaking point came 6 weeks before their scheduled wedding date, when Ashley announced that she wanted to make final decisions about their guest list and wedding party composition. Ashley had been gradually reducing the number of family members and family friends who would be invited to their celebration, claiming that smaller guest lists created more intimate and meaningful experiences. But Ashley's real motivation for limiting their guest list was her desire to exclude family members who might question her treatment of Michael or who represented values and traditions she wanted to eliminate from their shared life. Ashley specifically wanted to exclude several of Michael's aunts and uncles who had known him since childhood and who might notice changes in his behavior and priorities. Ashley also wanted to exclude our parish priest, Father Martinez, who had known Michael since he was baptized and who had been planning to perform their wedding ceremony. Ashley claimed that religious ceremonies were outdated and that they should have a civil ceremony that reflected their modern values and personal beliefs rather than institutional traditions. Most shocking was Ashley's announcement that she had decided I should not be invited to their wedding reception, though I could attend the ceremony if I promised not to interfere with their celebration or make comments about their choices that might create tension or discomfort for their guests. Ashley explained that she and Michael had decided their wedding should focus on their future together rather than honoring family relationships that might complicate their ability to build an independent life based on their own values and goals. She claimed that having traditional family members at their reception would create pressure to maintain customs and expectations that they wanted to leave behind. When Michael tried to object to excluding me from their reception, Ashley became angry and accused him of being unable to prioritize their relationship over family obligations that would continue to interfere with their marriage for years to come. She told Michael that his loyalty to his mother was evidence that he was not ready for the kind of mature partnership she expected from marriage. Ashley also revealed that she had been researching my background and financial situation, apparently trying to understand how I could afford to live comfortably on a widow's income and what kind of inheritance Michael might eventually expect from my estate. Ashley's questions about family money were clearly motivated by financial calculation rather than genuine interest in our family history or relationships. But Ashley's research had been superficial and inaccurate, based on public records and social media information that did not reflect the true extent of the foster family wealth or my ability to control significant financial resources. When family relationships were threatened, Ashley had seriously underestimated both my commitment to protecting my family and my power to defend those relationships when necessary. That was when I realized that Ashley's hostility toward me was not just about personality conflicts or different values. Ashley saw me as a threat to her control over Michael and as a potential obstacle to her access to any family money that Michael might inherit in the future. Ashley wanted to isolate Michael from family relationships that might interfere with her ability to influence his decisions about money, career, and lifestyle choices. But Ashley had made a critical error in her calculations about our family dynamics and financial arrangements. She assumed that excluding me from their wedding would demonstrate her power over Michael and establish her authority as the most important woman in his life. What Ashley did not understand was that she was about to learn exactly how much power I actually had and how expensive it would be to disrespect the person who had been secretly funding her dream wedding. Ashley also did not realize that I had been documenting her behavior and recording conversations that revealed her true motivations and character. I had been keeping detailed records of her manipulation tactics, her disrespectful comments about our family, and her obvious gold-digging behavior that would become evidence if I needed to protect Michael from a destructive marriage. 3 weeks before their wedding date, Ashley called me to deliver what she clearly believed would be a final ultimatum about my role in their celebration. Her tone was condescending and dismissive, as if she were explaining simple facts to someone too naive to understand modern relationship dynamics. "Margaret," Ashley said, "Michael and I have made some final decisions about our wedding that we wanted to discuss with you. We have decided that it would be better for everyone if you did not attend our reception. You can come to the ceremony if you want, but we think the reception should be limited to people who support our vision for our marriage and our age." I remained silent while Ashley continued her explanation, apparently interpreting my lack of response as acceptance of her decision. Ashley explained that she and Michael wanted a celebration that reflected their values and priorities rather than traditional family expectations that might create conflict or discomfort for their guests. Ashley also mentioned that they had been reconsidering their relationship with extended family members who seemed unable to accept their independence and modern approach to marriage and life planning. She suggested that Michael needed to focus on building his own family with her rather than maintaining obligations. Two relatives who did not share their values or support their goals. When Ashley finished her monologue, I asked one simple question that would change everything about their wedding planning and their understanding of family relationships. Ashley, I said calmly, exactly how much do you think your wedding is costing? Ashley seemed surprised by my question, but answered confidently that they were spending approximately $1,000 on their celebration, which was already more than they could comfortably afford but was necessary for the kind of sophisticated event that reflected their taste and social status. That is interesting, I replied, because according to my records, your wedding is actually costing $68,000, and I have been paying the difference for the past 8 months. The phone went completely silent. I could hear Ashley breathing, but she seemed unable to speak or process what I had just told her. After several moments, she found her voice and demanded to know what I was talking about and why I would make such a ridiculous claim about their wedding. Expenses? I explained calmly that I had been working with their wedding planner to cover the actual costs of their celebration while allowing them to believe they were paying for everything themselves: the venue, catering, flowers, photography, music, and decorations they had chosen were all premium services that cost significantly more than the reduced invoices they had been receiving. Ashley, I continued, you have been planning a luxury wedding while paying budget prices because I wanted Michael to have the celebration he deserved without going into debt or experiencing financial stress that could damage his future. Security. Ashley's response revealed everything about her character and priorities. Instead of expressing gratitude or embarrassment about her treatment of someone who had been generously supporting their celebration, Ashley became angry and accused me of manipulating their wedding planning process and trying to control their decisions through financial coercion. How dare you interfere in our wedding without our knowledge? Ashley said. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior that proves you cannot respect our independence or our right to make our own decisions about our lives and our relationship. Ashley also accused me of deliberately deceiving them about wedding costs in order to make them feel obligated to include me in their celebration and to accept my opinions about their choices. She claimed that my secret financial support was a form of manipulation designed to maintain power over Michael's life and decisions. I let Ashley finish her accusations before responding with information that would completely destroy her confidence and reveal the consequences of disrespecting someone who had been protecting her from her own poor judgment and financial irresponsibility. Ashley, I said, you are absolutely right that I have been interfering in your wedding planning. And since you value independence and authenticity so highly, I am going to give you exactly what you have asked for. As of right now, I am withdrawing all financial support for your wedding. You have 3 weeks to find $68,000 or make significant changes to your celebration plans. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. I could almost hear Ashley's mind racing as she began to understand the implications of what I had just told her. All of the expensive vendors, luxury services, and premium options she had chosen were about to become her financial responsibility. But I was not finished delivering consequences for Ashley's disrespect and manipulation. I also informed Ashley that Michael would be learning about my financial support and her decision to exclude me from their wedding, because I would not allow her to continue manipulating him through lies and deception about their financial situation. Ashley immediately began backtracking. claiming that there had been a misunderstanding about my role in their wedding and that she had never intended to exclude me from their entire celebration. She insisted that she and Michael valued family relationships and wanted me to be part of their special day. But it was too late for Ashley to repair the damage she had done through months of disrespect, manipulation, and deliberate exclusion of family members who had been supporting her wedding financially while she criticized our values and traditions. I told Ashley that she had 24 hours to explain the situation to Michael and to decide whether they wanted to continue with their expensive wedding plans using their own money or make significant changes that would bring their costs within their actual budget. I also informed Ashley that regardless of what they decided about their wedding expenses, I would be attending both the ceremony and reception as the mother of the groom, and that any further attempts to exclude me or minimize my role would result in additional consequences that she would not enjoy. After I hung up the phone, I immediately called Maria Santos, their wedding planner, to inform her that my financial arrangement was ending immediately and that Ashley and Michael would need to cover all remaining expenses themselves or make changes to their vendor agreements and service contracts. Maria was not surprised by this development because she had been watching Ashley's behavior throughout the planning process and had commented to me privately that Ashley seemed entitled and ungrateful for the luxury celebration she was receiving at such reduced personal cost. Maria also mentioned that Ashley had been demanding and difficult to work with, frequently changing her mind about expensive details and showing no consideration for the extra work and coordination required to accommodate her preferences. Ashley had treated vendors and service providers disrespectfully, apparently believing that paying for services gave her the right to be rude and dismissive to working people. I also called my attorney, James Morrison, to discuss potential legal issues if Ashley and Michael could not pay their outstanding wedding expenses, or if Ashley attempted to claim that my financial support created some kind of contractual obligation for continued payments. James assured me that my voluntary gifts could be withdrawn at any time and that I had no legal responsibility to continue funding their celebration. James also suggested that I document all communications with Ashley and Michael about the wedding expenses and my decision to withdraw financial support in case Ashley attempted to create legal complications or make false claims about our financial arrangements. That evening, Michael called me in a state of panic and confusion, having just learned about my financial support and Ashley's decision to exclude me from their wedding reception. Michael was clearly shocked by both pieces of information and seemed unable to understand how these situations had developed without his knowledge. Mom, Michael said, Ashley told me what happened with the wedding payments. I had no idea you were helping us financially. Why did not you tell me you were paying for our wedding? I explained to Michael that I had wanted to give them a generous wedding gift without creating pressure or obligations that might interfere with their planning process or their sense of independence. I had also suspected that Ashley would refuse direct financial assistance or would use my generosity as evidence that I was trying to control their celebration. But, Michael, I continued, I cannot continue supporting a wedding where I am not welcome and where my values and family relationships are being disrespected and dismissed. Ashley has made it clear that she wants to exclude me from your celebration and from your future life together. Michael tried to defend Ashley's behavior by claiming that wedding planning was stressful and that she had probably just been overwhelmed by all the decisions and expenses involved in organizing their celebration. He suggested that Ashley's comments about excluding me had been made during a moment of frustration rather than representing her true feelings about family relationships. But I've been watching Ashley's behavior for too long to accept Michael's excuses for her manipulation and disrespect. Ashley's hostility toward me and our family values had been consistent and deliberate, not the result of temporary stress or miscommunication. Michael, I said, Ashley has been systematically undermining your relationship with our family for months. She has criticized our traditions, dismissed our values, and tried to convince you that your loyalty to family members is preventing you from becoming independent and successful. I also explained to Michael that Ashley had been researching my financial situation and asking questions about his potential inheritance, suggesting that her interest in our family relationships was primarily motivated by money. Rather than genuine affection or respect, Michael seemed shocked by this information and claimed that Ashley had never mentioned family money or inheritance issues to him. But when I asked Michael to think about Ashley's questions and comments over the past several months, he began to recognize patterns of behavior that he had previously overlooked or misinterpreted. The next morning, Ashley called me again, this time with a completely different tone and approach. Instead of being angry and accusatory, Ashley was apologetic and conciliatory, claiming that she had been under tremendous stress and had not meant to hurt my feelings or damage our relationship. Ashley explained that wedding planning had been more overwhelming than she had anticipated and that she had made mistakes in her communication that did not reflect her true feelings about family, relationships, or my role in Michael's life. She asked if we could meet in person to discuss the situation and find a solution that would work for everyone involved. But Ashley's sudden change in attitude was clearly motivated by panic about their wedding expenses rather than genuine remorse for her disrespectful behavior. Ashley had spent the previous day contacting vendors and learning that their wedding celebration would actually cost $68,000 rather than the $22,000 they had been paying. Ashley and Michael simply did not have access to an additional $46,000 that would be required to maintain their current wedding plans. They could potentially take out personal loans or use credit cards to cover some of the additional expenses, but doing so would create debt that could affect their financial security for years. Ashley had also learned that canceling their vendor contracts 3 weeks before their wedding date would result in significant penalty fees that could cost them thousands of dollars, even if they decided to completely cancel their celebration. They were trapped between expensive options that they could not afford and cancellation penalties that would cost them money without providing any wedding celebration. I agreed to meet with Ashley and Michael to discuss their options, but I made it clear that my financial support was contingent on receiving respect and inclusion that reflected my role as Michael's mother and as the person who had been generously supporting their celebration. When we met the following day at a coffee shop in downtown Portland, Ashley's demeanor was completely different from her previous interactions with me. She was polite, respectful, and apparently eager to repair our relationship and restore my financial support for their wedding. Ashley apologized for excluding me from their reception plans and claimed that she had been influenced by advice from friends who had suggested that smaller celebrations were more intimate and meaningful. She insisted that she had never intended to hurt my feelings or damage my relationship with Michael, but Ashley's apology felt calculated and insincere, focusing on minimizing her previous behavior rather than acknowledging the disrespect and manipulation she had demonstrated over months of wedding planning. Ashley was clearly more concerned about restoring my financial support than about genuinely improving our relationship or respecting my role in Michael's life. I told Ashley that I appreciated her apology, but that I needed to see consistent changes in her behavior and attitude before I would consider resuming financial support for their wedding. Ashley needed to demonstrate respect for our family values and inclusion of family members who were important to Michael's life and happiness. I also explained to both Ashley and Michael that family relationships required mutual respect and consideration, and that my generosity should not be taken for granted or used as leverage for excluding me from important family celebrations. Michael seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation and supported my requirements for respect and inclusion. He apologized for not recognizing Ashley's disrespectful behavior earlier and promised that family relationships would be a priority in their marriage and future decisions. Ashley agreed to modify their wedding plans to include all family members who had originally been invited and to demonstrate respect for family traditions and values that were important to Michael's upbringing and identity. She also promised to work on building a positive relationship with me based on mutual respect rather than conflict and competition. But I was not ready to resume financial support for their wedding without seeing evidence that Ashley's changes were genuine rather than temporary adjustments. Motivated by financial necessity, I told them that they would need to cover their wedding expenses independently for the next 2 weeks while demonstrating consistent, respectful behavior and family inclusion. During this probationary period, Ashley would need to show respect for our family relationships through her actions rather than just her words. She would need to include me in final wedding planning decisions, ask for my opinions about vendors and arrangements, and demonstrate genuine interest in building a positive relationship rather than just securing financial support. If Ashley could show genuine respect for our family relationships and values during this probationary period, I would consider covering their remaining wedding expenses as originally planned. But if Ashley returned to her previous pattern of manipulation and exclusion, they would be responsible for all wedding costs and would need to make significant changes to their celebration plans. Michael was clearly worried about their ability to handle wedding expenses independently. But he also seemed to understand that Ashley's behavior toward me had been inappropriate and needed to change. Regardless of financial considerations, Michael promised to support my requirements for respect and inclusion and to ensure that Ashley understood the importance of family relationships in their marriage. Ashley agreed to these conditions but seemed frustrated that her apology was not immediately accepted and that she would need to demonstrate changed behavior over time rather than receiving immediate forgiveness and restored financial support. Over the next 2 weeks, Ashley made obvious efforts to improve her behavior and demonstrate respect for our family relationships. She included me in final wedding planning decisions, asked for my opinions about vendors and arrangements, and even suggested incorporating some traditional elements that would honor family customs and values. Ashley also apologized to several family members she had previously excluded from their guest list and invited them to participate in their celebration. She seemed to understand that her previous behavior had been disrespectful and was making genuine efforts to repair relationships that she had damaged through months of manipulation and criticism. Ashley began attending our weekly family dinners and participating in conversations about family history, traditions, and values that she had previously dismissed as outdated and irrelevant. She asked questions about Michael's childhood, our family business, and the principles that David and I had tried to instill in our children. But the most important change was in Ashley's treatment of Michael during this stressful period. Instead of pressuring him to choose between his loyalty to family and his commitment to their relationship, Ashley began supporting Michael's desire to maintain close family connections while building their own marriage and future together. Ashley acknowledged that her previous criticism of family relationships had been unfair and that she needed to understand and respect the values and respect and traditions that were important to Michael's identity and happiness. She seemed genuine in her efforts to build bridges rather than creating barriers between Michael and his family. Michael seemed relieved by these changes and appeared more relaxed and confident than he had been during the previous months of conflict and tension. He was clearly grateful that Ashley was making efforts to respect his family relationships and include me in their wedding celebration. Ashley also began working with Maria Santos to incorporate some traditional elements into their wedding ceremony and reception that would honor our family's Catholic faith and cultural background. She agreed to include some religious readings, traditional music, and family customs that would make the celebration meaningful for Michael's extended family. These changes required Ashley to compromise on some of her original vision for a completely modern, non-traditional celebration, but she seemed willing to make these adjustments in order to rebuild relationships and restore my financial support for their wedding. After observing Ashley's improved behavior for 2 weeks, I decided to resume financial support for their wedding expenses. I wanted Michael to have the celebration he deserved, and I was hopeful that Ashley's attitude changes would continue beyond their wedding day and into their marriage. I contacted Maria Santos to restore our previous financial arrangement and to ensure that all vendor payments would be handled smoothly for the remaining weeks before their wedding date. Maria was pleased to continue working with our arrangement and commented that Ashley's behavior toward vendors and service providers had also improved significantly. But I also implemented some additional conditions that would protect my interests and ensure that Ashley understood the consequences of any future disrespect or manipulation. I required Ashley to acknowledge in writing that I had been paying for their wedding expenses and that her previous exclusion of me from their celebration had been inappropriate and hurtful. I also established clear expectations for future family relationships, including regular family gatherings, respectful communication, and inclusion in important decisions that affected Michael's life and well-being. Ashley agreed to these conditions and seemed committed to building a positive relationship with me going forward. The written agreement also included provisions that would allow me to withdraw financial support again if Ashley returned to her previous pattern of disrespectful behavior or if she attempted to exclude me from future family celebrations or important milestones in their marriage. Ashley signed the agreement willingly and expressed gratitude for my continued financial support and my willingness to give her another chance to prove that she could be a respectful and inclusive member of our family. She seemed to understand that her behavior had consequences and that maintaining family relationships required ongoing effort and consideration. But I also made arrangements with my attorney to ensure that my financial support for their wedding would be properly documented as gifts rather than loans, protecting me from any future claims that Ashley and Michael might make if their marriage encountered difficulties or if they became resentful about their financial dependence on my generosity. James Morrison prepared documentation that clearly established my wedding payments as voluntary gifts that created no ongoing obligations or expectations for future financial support. This protection was important because I suspected that Ashley might eventually resent her dependence on my generosity and might attempt to claim that my support created some kind of financial obligation or control over their relationship. Their wedding took place on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in early October, exactly as Ashley had originally planned, with all of the expensive vendors and luxury details that I had been secretly funding for months. The celebration was elegant and sophisticated, reflecting Ashley's taste and vision while also incorporating family traditions that honored Michael's upbringing and values. The ceremony was held at Riverside Gardens with Father Martinez officiating, incorporating Catholic traditions and family customs that made the celebration meaningful for Michael's extended family, while still reflecting Ashley's preferences for elegant, sophisticated details. I was seated in the front row during their ceremony and given a place of honor at their reception. Clearly recognized as Michael's mother and as an important member of their family, Ashley introduced me to her friends and coworkers with respect and warmth, presenting me as someone she valued and appreciated rather than as an obstacle to their independence. Ashley's behavior throughout their wedding day was gracious and inclusive, demonstrating the kind of respect and consideration that should have characterized our relationship from the beginning. She seemed genuine in her efforts to include me in their celebration and to acknowledge my role in making their dream wedding possible. Michael was clearly happy and relaxed during their celebration, freed from the financial stress and family conflict that had been affecting him for months. He was able to enjoy his wedding day, knowing that his relationship with me was strong and that Ashley was committed to respecting our family relationships going forward. But the most satisfying moment came during Ashley's speech at their reception, when she publicly acknowledged my generosity and support for their wedding celebration. Ashley thanked me for my financial contribution and for my patience during what she described as a stressful planning process that had sometimes brought out the worst in everyone involved. Ashley's public acknowledgement of my support served multiple purposes. It demonstrated her commitment to honesty and gratitude in our relationship. It educated their guests about my role in making their celebration possible. And it established expectations for how I should be treated and respected in their future family decisions. The speech also revealed to Ashley's friends and coworkers that she had not been paying for the luxury wedding they were enjoying, which corrected any misconceptions they might have had about Ashley and Michael's financial resources or success. Several guests approached me throughout the evening to express appreciation for my generosity and to comment on how fortunate Ashley was to have such a supportive mother-in-law. After their wedding, Ashley continued to demonstrate improved behavior and respect for our family relationships. She and Michael began hosting regular family dinners, included me in holiday celebrations, and consulted me about major decisions affecting their marriage and future. Plans. Ashley also made efforts to learn about our family history and traditions, showing genuine interest in understanding the values and customs that were important to Michael's identity and upbringing. She seemed to recognize that respecting Michael's family background was essential for building a strong and lasting marriage. Most importantly, Ashley stopped trying to manipulate Michael's relationship with me and began supporting his desire to maintain close family connections. She understood that marriage should strengthen family relationships, rather than competing with them or trying to replace them, but I remained watchful for signs that Ashley's improved behavior might be temporary or motivated primarily by financial considerations, rather than genuine respect for family relationships. I continued to monitor their financial situation and their interactions with other family members to ensure that Ashley's changes were consistent and lasting. 6 months after their wedding, Ashley and Michael announced that they were expecting their first child, and Ashley specifically asked me to be involved in their pregnancy and parenting journey. She wanted my advice about childcare, family traditions, and the kind of values and customs she hoped to pass on to their children. Ashley's request for my involvement in their family planning represented a complete transformation from her previous attitude toward my role in Michael's life. She now saw me as a valuable resource and ally rather than as a threat to her relationship with Michael or an obstacle to their independence. Ashley also began working with me to establish college savings accounts for their future children and to discuss the possibility of eventually including their children in the foster family business legacy. These conversations demonstrated that Ashley now understood and appreciated the financial security and opportunities that came with being part of our family. But perhaps most importantly, Ashley began volunteering with me at our church and participating in community service activities that had always been important to our family's identity and values. She seemed genuine in her efforts to understand and embrace the principles that David and I had tried to instill in our children. Today, Ashley and I have developed a genuinely positive relationship based on mutual respect and shared commitment to Michael's happiness and their family's success. Ashley has learned to appreciate the stability and security that comes from strong family relationships, and she values the support and guidance I can provide as an experienced mother and grandmother. Michael has also benefited from the resolution of our family conflict, as he no longer feels torn between loyalty to his mother and commitment to his wife. He can enjoy both relationships without feeling pressured to choose sides or manage ongoing tension between the two most important women in his. Their marriage appears to be strong and stable, built on a foundation of honest communication, shared values, and mutual respect for each other's families and backgrounds. Ashley has learned to appreciate traditional family values while maintaining her own independence and modern perspectives. Ashley has also demonstrated financial responsibility and gratitude for the support she has received from our family. She and Michael have avoided taking on debt, have established emergency savings, and are planning carefully for their future security and their children's education. But the experience also taught me important lessons about recognizing manipulation and protecting family relationships from people who might try to exploit generosity or take advantage of family loyalty. I learned that sometimes dramatic action is necessary to establish boundaries and demonstrate the consequences of disrespectful behavior. The experience confirmed that respect and gratitude cannot be taken for granted in family relationships, and that financial generosity should be appreciated rather than exploited by people who believe they are entitled to support without reciprocal consideration. Ashley, learn that excluding and disrespecting family members who are supporting you financially is not just ungrateful but potentially very expensive. Her attempt to exclude me from their wedding while benefiting from my secret financial support could have cost them their entire celebration and created debt that would have affected their marriage for years. The experience also taught Michael important lessons about recognizing manipulation and standing up for family relationships that matter to his well-being and identity. Michael learned that marriage should enhance rather than diminish his connection to family members who have supported and loved him throughout his life. But I also learned that people can change and grow when they are given clear expectations and consequences for their behavior. Ashley's transformation from manipulation and disrespect to gratitude and inclusion proves that family relationships can be repaired when everyone commits to honest communication and mutual consideration. The financial leverage I used to teach Ashley about respect and gratitude was effective because it demonstrated the real consequences of her choices rather than just expressing disapproval through words or emotional appeals. Ashley learned that actions have financial consequences and that disrespecting generous family members can be very expensive. But the long-term success of our relationship has depended on Ashley's willingness to continue demonstrating respect and inclusion even after the immediate financial pressure was resolved. Ashley's consistent improved behavior over the past 2 years suggests that her changes were genuine rather than just temporary adjustments motivated by financial necessity. Today, I am proud of the young woman Ashley has become and grateful for the positive relationship we have built together. She has proven that she can be a loving and respectful member of our family while maintaining her own independence and pursuing her own goals and interests. Ashley has also become an advocate for strong family relationships and has encouraged other young couples to value and respect their days extended families rather than viewing family connections as obstacles to independence and success. But perhaps the most important outcome has been the birth of my first grandchild, baby Sarah, who represents the future of the foster family and the continuation of the values and traditions that David and I worked so hard to establish and maintain. Ashley has embraced her role as a mother and has shown genuine interest in raising Sarah with appreciation for family history, traditions, and values while also encouraging independence, creativity, and modern perspectives that will serve her well in contemporary society. Watching Ashley interact with baby Sarah and seeing her commitment to being a loving, responsible mother has confirmed that her transformation was genuine and lasting rather than temporary behavior, motivated by financial concerns or social pressure. Michael has also grown into his role as a father and has demonstrated the kind of family leadership and responsibility that David and I had hoped to see from all of our children. He is building the kind of strong, loving family that honors our traditions while embracing new opportunities and challenges. The foster family legacy will continue through Sarah and any future grandchildren, and I am confident that the values and principles David and I established will be passed on to future generations through Michael and Ashley's commitment to family loyalty, financial responsibility, and mutual respect. But the experience also reminded me that family wealth and generosity should be protected and used wisely rather than being taken for granted or exploited by people who do not appreciate the sacrifices and hard work that created those resources. The foster family business continues to grow and prosper, providing financial security and opportunities for future generations while also supporting community development and charitable causes that reflect our family's commitment to social responsibility and civic engagement. Ashley has expressed interest in eventually becoming involved in the family business and has begun learning about real estate investment, property management, and the financial planning strategies that have made our family successful over multiple generations. Her interest in learning about business and finance represents a complete change from her previous attitude toward family money and demonstrates her commitment to being a responsible steward of the resources and opportunities that will benefit her, children, and future grandchildren. Have you ever dealt with family members who took your generosity for granted or tried to exclude you from important celebrations while benefiting from your financial support? How did you handle situations where your financial support was not appreciated or respected by people who should have been grateful for your help? What lessons have you learned about setting boundaries with ungrateful family members and protecting yourself from people who might try to exploit your generosity while showing disrespect for your role in their lives? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize manipulation tactics or find the courage to stand up for themselves when family members are taking advantage of their generosity without showing appropriate respect or gratitude. If this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family relationships, ungrateful relatives, and what happens when people learn to appreciate the support they have been taking for granted. Remember to share this with someone who might need to hear that respect and gratitude are required in healthy family relationships, and that financial generosity should be appreciated rather than exploited by people who think they are entitled to support without reciprocal consideration. Thank you for listening. And remember that you have the right to expect respect and appreciation from family members who benefit from your generosity, and that sometimes people need to experience consequences before they learn to value what they have been taking for granted.